November 28th, 1943. RAF Medmenham, a secret compound 50 miles west of London. Flight Officer Constance Babington Smith is on hour 14 of her shift. She's hunched over a stereoscope, a magnifying glass in her hand. Her eyes burn. Her neck aches. She's been staring at reconnaissance photographs since dawn. These aren't just any photographs. They're images of Peenemünde, a remote German island in the Baltic Sea, a facility where Hitler is developing weapons that could change the war. Rockets, long-range guns, secret aircraft. Thousands of photo analysts have examined these images for months, looking for anything unusual, anything dangerous, anything that might threaten the Allied invasion being planned for the spring of 1944. They found nothing conclusive, just buildings, launch ramps, test facilities, no smoking gun. Constance keeps looking. One more photograph, one more magnification, one more millimeter of film, and then she sees it. On a launching ramp, partially obscured by shadows, there's a shape, a tiny cruciform object, less than 1 millimeter on the photograph, 20 feet in reality. She leans closer, adjusts the stereoscope. The three-dimensional image comes into focus. It's an aircraft, but there's no cockpit, no pilot, just a stubby fuselage, short wings, and what looks like a pulse jet engine mounted on top. She doesn't breathe. She can't believe what she's seeing. "I don't believe it," she says aloud. To no one, to everyone. "You think it's for launching pilotless aircraft?" Her colleagues gather around. They look through the stereoscope. They see it too. It's real. It's a V-1 flying bomb, Hitler's first revenge weapon. A pilotless jet-powered bomb designed to rain destruction on London and southern England at 400 miles per hour. British intelligence has heard rumors, intercepted communications, reports from resistance fighters, but this is proof, hard evidence. And it's terrifying, because here's what Constance doesn't know yet, what no one in that room knows. Launch sites for these weapons are being constructed all along the French coast, not just aimed at London, aimed at the invasion staging areas in southern England, at the ports, at the troop concentrations, at the ships and supplies massing for D-Day. If Hitler launches these weapons before June 1944, the entire invasion force could be annihilated before it ever leaves port. D-Day would be delayed, possibly for years. The war would drag on. Millions more would die. But Constance Babington Smith just spotted what 10,000 analysts missed. A detail smaller than a grain of rice on a photograph taken from 30,000 feet. And that discovery? It's about to trigger the largest bombing campaign in history. Operation Crossbow. The systematic destruction of every V-weapon launch site in occupied Europe. One woman, one magnifying glass, one impossible detail. This is the story of how D-Day was saved by someone you've never heard of. Not a general, not a soldier, not a spy. A photo analyst, working 14-hour days in a windowless room, staring at grainy black and white images until her eyes bled. This is the story of Constance Babington Smith, and the millimeter that changed history. To understand how Constance saved D-Day, you need to understand RAF Medmenham and the extraordinary world of photo intelligence. Medmenham is Britain's most secret installation, a compound of requisitioned manor houses in the English countryside. From the outside, it looks like an estate. Inside, it's the nerve center of Allied aerial reconnaissance. Every day, reconnaissance aircraft return from missions over occupied Europe. Spitfires, Mosquitoes, flying at 30,000 feet, cameras clicking, capturing millions of square miles of territory. The photographs are developed, rushed to Medmenham, and examined by an army of photo interpreters. By 1943, the operation is staggering in scale. 7 million prints per month, analyzed frame by frame, millimeter by millimeter. The analysts aren't typical soldiers. They're geologists, archaeologists, botanists, mathematicians, artists, people trained to see patterns, to notice details others miss, to distinguish shadows from objects, natural features from camouflage. And they're preparing for D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, the largest amphibious assault in human history. Every beach defense needs to be identified. Every pillbox, every anti-tank obstacle, every minefield, every gun emplacement. The planners need to know exactly what the troops will face when they hit those beaches. The pressure is immense. Every missed detail could mean hundreds of soldiers dead. One of those analysts is Constance Babington Smith, but everyone calls her Babs. She's not your typical military officer. Born in 1912 to an upper-class British family, daughter of a senior civil servant, granddaughter of the 9th Earl of Elgin, she could have lived a comfortable life of privilege. Instead, she fell in love with aviation. In the 1,930 seconds, she worked as a journalist for the Aeroplane magazine, writing about the latest aircraft designs, interviewing pilots, learning to recognize planes from their silhouettes. When war breaks out in 1939, she joins the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, not as a nurse or secretary, as a photo interpreter. December 1940. She's trained in the art of photographic analysis, how to use stereoscopes, how to calculate heights and distances, how to recognize military installations from patterns of shadows. She's assigned to set up the aircraft section at Medmenham. Her job? Identify new German aircraft from reconnaissance photographs, track their development, warn Allied forces what they'll face in the skies. She's brilliant at it. She has an eye for detail that borders on supernatural. She can spot a plane in a photograph that others swear is just a shadow. She can identify aircraft types from fragments of wings or tails. Her brother, Bernard, also works at Medmenham. He runs the night photography section. It's a family affair, both sacrificing their eyesight and their health for the war effort. Constance works 12 to 14 hours a day, bent over her stereoscope. The device creates a three-dimensional image from overlapping photographs. It's like looking through a microscope at an entire landscape. Her eyes burn constantly. Her neck is in permanent pain. But she doesn't stop, can't stop, because in the spring of 1943, she receives a new assignment, one that will define her career and possibly change the outcome of the war. Intelligence has heard rumors. German scientists are developing new weapons at a facility called Peenemünde on a remote island in the Baltic. Constance is briefed by her commanding officer. Look for rockets, long-range artillery. And this is the phrase that becomes her mission statement. Look for anything queer, anything unusual, anything that doesn't belong, anything the Germans might be testing. She doesn't know it yet, but she's about to find something very queer indeed. June 1943. A colleague at Medmenham spots something at Peenemünde. Large, cylindrical objects on transport vehicles. They're V-2 rockets, the world's first ballistic missiles, 38 feet long, carrying a 1-ton warhead. It's a terrifying discovery. But there's something else, something smaller, something the intelligence briefs mention but can't confirm. A pilotless aircraft, a flying bomb, jet-powered, fast, cheap to produce, designed to be launched by the hundreds, maybe thousands. June 23rd, 1943. Constance is examining photographs of Peenemünde when she spots something odd. 4 small aircraft without tails, just stubby fuselages with short wings. She reports it. Identifies them as Me-163 Comet rocket fighters. But Lord Cherwell, Churchill's chief science advisor, dismisses the finding. He thinks it's a German hoax. Fake planes designed to waste Allied reconnaissance resources. Constance is frustrated. She knows what she saw, but she's overruled. She keeps looking. For months. November 13th, 1943. A new briefing. Intelligence has intercepted German communications mentioning Flaxial Gerät 76, anti-aircraft target device 76. It's code for something. Probably the pilotless aircraft. Constance receives updated instructions. Look for smaller objects, launching ramps, anything that might be related to this mystery weapon. She redoubles her efforts. Every photograph from Peenemünde gets triple-checked. Every shadow, every anomaly. November 28th, 1943. A Sunday. Squadron leader Merrifield's Mosquito returns from a reconnaissance run over Peenemünde. The photographs are developed and rushed to Medmenham. Constance receives them that afternoon. She's already been working since dawn. Her eyes are bloodshot. Her hands shake from exhaustion. But there are new images to examine. She places the first stereoscopic pair under her viewer. The three-dimensional landscape of Peenemünde materializes. Trees, buildings, roads, launch ramps. She scans methodically, left to right, top to bottom, looking for anything queer. Hour after hour, photograph after photograph. And then, on one of the launching ramps, there's something, a shape, less than 1 millimeter on the film. She almost misses it, almost moves on, but something makes her stop. Look again. Increase magnification. It's cruciform, cross-shaped, like an aircraft viewed from above, but tiny. And there's scorch marks around the ramp, black streaks on the concrete, jet exhaust burns. She measures it using the stereoscope's built-in scale. Wingspan, approximately 20 feet. Fuselage length, about 18 feet. Her heart is pounding. This is it. The pilotless aircraft, the flying bomb. She calls over her supervisor. I don't believe it. You think it's for launching pilotless aircraft? He looks. He sees it. He believes it. Within hours, the photograph is in front of British intelligence chiefs. Within days, it's on Churchill's desk. The implications are staggering and immediate. The V-1 flying bomb, jet-powered, 400 miles per hour, carries an 1,870-pound warhead. Range, approximately 150 miles. It's designed for mass production. Cheap, simple, expendable. The Germans can build thousands of them, launch them by the hundreds every day. And intelligence photos reveal something even more terrifying. Launch sites are being constructed all along the French coast, from Pas-de-Calais to Normandy. At first, Allied command thinks they're aimed at London. Revenge for the Allied bombing campaign. Terror weapons to break British morale. But then someone realizes the timing. It's November 1943. D-Day is planned for late spring or early summer 1944. That's 6 to 8 months away. Right now, in southern England, the largest invasion force in history is assembling. Troops, ships, equipment, ammunition, fuel depots, airfields, all concentrated in a relatively small area. If the Germans launch Von's second at these staging areas before the invasion, the entire operation could be destroyed. Thousands of soldiers killed before they ever board a landing craft. Ships sunk in port, supplies destroyed. D-Day would have to be postponed. Late summer, maybe fall, maybe 1945. And every month of delay means more time for Germany to fortify the Atlantic Wall. More Soviet casualties on the Eastern Front. More Jews murdered in death camps. More cities destroyed. The stakes are almost incomprehensible, and it all hinges on what Constance Babington Smith spotted, a detail smaller than a grain of rice on a photograph. Operation Crossbow is immediately initiated, the systematic destruction of every V weapon facility in occupied Europe. Constance's team goes into overdrive. They examine every inch of the French coast, looking for launch sites. The sites are camouflaged, hidden in forests, designed to look like farm buildings. But the photo analysts are better. They spot the patterns, the access roads, the concrete foundations, the geometric precision that nature never produces. They find dozens of sites, then hundreds. RAF Bomber Command receives the targeting data. The campaign begins. Night after night, bombers pound the V-weapon sites. Some are destroyed, others are damaged. Many are rebuilt. It becomes a race. Can the Allies destroy the sites faster than Germany can build them? Winter 1943 to 1944. The bombing continues. Constance and her team work around the clock, finding new sites, tracking repairs, updating target lists. By spring 1944, most of the launch sites in northern France have been neutralized. But some remain operational, hidden, waiting. June 6th, 1944. D-Day. The invasion begins. 156,000 Allied troops storm the beaches of Normandy. The Germans don't launch Vone's second at the invasion fleet. They can't. Most of their launch sites have been destroyed. The few that remain are aimed at England, not the Channel. June 13th, 1944. 1 week after D-Day, the first V-1 flying bomb hits London, then another, then hundreds more over the following months. But it's too late. The invasion force is already in France. The beachhead is established. The Allies are ashore. The timing was everything. If the V-1 campaign had started 3 months earlier, in March or April, while the invasion force was still massed in southern England, history would be very different. And it didn't happen because Constance Babington Smith spotted a millimeter-sized detail on a photograph on hour 14 of her shift. On a Sunday afternoon in November, one woman, one stereoscope, one impossible discovery. She saved D-Day, and she barely received credit for it. Let's talk about what Constance prevented. The alternate history that didn't happen because of her discovery. If the V-1 launch sites had become operational by April or May 1944, Hitler would have had a decision to make. Target London or target the invasion staging areas? Intelligence suggests he would have chosen both. But the invasion forces would have been priority targets: Southampton, Portsmouth, Plymouth, Dover. Every port in southern England was packed with ships, troops, and supplies. A V-1 carries an 1,870-pound warhead. One bomb can destroy a city block, sink a transport ship, detonate an ammunition dump. Germany built approximately 30,000 Von second during the war. If even 10% had hit invasion staging areas between April and June 1944, the casualties would have been catastrophic. Thousands of soldiers killed, hundreds of ships damaged or destroyed, critical supplies obliterated. D-Day would have been postponed, at minimum, several months, possibly a full year, and every month of delay had consequences. The Germans were frantically reinforcing the Atlantic Wall, building more pillboxes, laying more mines, positioning more troops. Given 6 more months, Normandy would have been a fortress. On the Eastern Front, the Soviets were bleeding, taking massive casualties, pushing toward Berlin. Every month, the Western Allies delayed opening a second front meant more Soviet deaths, more strain on the alliance, more pressure for Stalin to consider a separate peace with Germany. In the death camps, the gas chambers ran continuously. Every month of delay meant tens of thousands more murdered. This is what Constance prevented. Not directly, not alone, but her discovery triggered the chain of events that kept the Von second from stopping D-Day. After the war, she was recognized. In 1945, she was awarded the MBE, Member of the British Empire. In 1946, the United States gave her the Legion of Merit. She'd also been mentioned in dispatches in 1942, but for decades, her story remained classified. The work at Medmenham was secret. The techniques used by photo interpreters were still valuable during the Cold War. In 1957, she published Evidence in Camera, the first comprehensive account of photo interpretation during World War II. It became the definitive text. Intelligence agencies around the world used it for training. In 1965, a film was made about Operation Crossbow. Constance was portrayed by actress Sylvia Sims, but the film took dramatic liberties. It didn't capture the tedium, the eye strain, the 14-hour days staring at grainy photographs. Constance returned to journalism after the war. She worked for Life magazine, wrote biographies, traveled. She never sought the spotlight, never promoted her wartime achievements. In 2015, 15 years after her death, she was inducted into the Geospatial Hall of Fame. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the modern descendant of photo interpretation units, named a facility in her honor. Today, satellite imagery analysts use techniques Constance pioneered: stereoscopic viewing, pattern recognition, the ability to distinguish artificial structures from natural terrain. Every intelligence analyst who spots a terrorist training camp in satellite imagery, every drone operator who identifies a roadside bomb, every geospatial specialist who maps enemy positions. They're using methods Constance Babington Smith developed. But there's a human cost that numbers don't capture. Constance worked 12 to 14 hours a day for years, hunched over a stereoscope, eyes burning, neck aching, knowing that every detail she missed could mean soldiers dead. The pressure was unimaginable, the responsibility crushing. She carried it for the entire war, and for the rest of her life, she lived with the knowledge of what she'd seen: the weapons, the destruction, the evidence of human evil captured in grainy black and white photographs. She died on July 31st, 2000, at the age of 87, remembered by the intelligence community, largely forgotten by the public, until now. The legacy of Constance Babington Smith extends far beyond World War II. She fundamentally changed how intelligence works. Before her, photo interpretation was considered a secondary skill, something done by junior officers between more important tasks. Constance proved it was the most important task, that wars could be won or lost based on what analysts saw in photographs. After the war, photo intelligence became a cornerstone of military doctrine. The CIA established dedicated imagery, analysis divisions. The National Reconnaissance Office was created to operate spy satellites. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency employs thousands of analysts today. Every major intelligence breakthrough since 1945 traces back to the methods Constance pioneered. October 1962, Cuban Missile Crisis. Photo analysts examining U-2 reconnaissance images spot Soviet missiles in Cuba. The discovery prevents nuclear war. Same techniques, same careful examination, same attention to impossible details. Gulf War, 1991. Satellite imagery analysts identify Iraqi troop positions, tank formations, and command centers. The coalition destroys them with precision strikes. Iraqi forces never knew what hit them. War on terror. Drone analysts spot insurgents planting IEDs, identify terrorist safe houses, track weapons shipments. The work is classified. The analysts are anonymous, but they're saving lives every day. All using principles Constance established. Look for anything queer. Trust your instincts. Don't dismiss anomalies. The detail that seems insignificant might be everything. But there's another legacy. one that's harder to quantify. Constance was a woman in a male-dominated field in the 1,940 seconds. She had no formal military training, no engineering degree. Her background was journalism and aviation enthusiasm. Yet she became indispensable. She proved that expertise trumps gender, that intelligence work isn't about physical strength or combat experience. It's about seeing what others miss, about pattern recognition, about intuition and dedication. Today, women comprise a significant percentage of intelligence analysts. They're imagery specialists, signals intelligence officers, counter-terrorism experts. Many credit Constance as a pioneer who proved women could excel in these roles. The CIA's headquarters has a memorial wall, stars for every officer killed in the line of duty. But there's no memorial for the analysts who prevented attacks, who spotted threats before they materialized, who worked 14-hour days in windowless rooms and saved lives without ever firing a shot. Constance represents them all. The invisible heroes, the ones who win wars before the first shot is fired. Because here's the truth that makes people uncomfortable. Wars aren't won by the bravest soldiers or the best generals. They're won by intelligence, by knowing what the enemy has before they use it, by striking launch sites before the missiles fly, by destroying weapons while they're still on the drawing board. D-Day succeeded because photo analysts identified every beach defense, because codebreakers at Bletchley Park decrypted German communications, because deception operations convinced Hitler the invasion would hit Calais instead of Normandy. The soldiers who stormed those beaches were incredibly brave. They deserve every honor, but they survived because intelligence officers gave them every advantage. Constance Babington Smith bent over her stereoscope, magnifying glass in hand. Hour 14 of her shift, eyes burning. One more photograph to examine, and there it is. Less than 1 millimeter on the film. A tiny cruciform shape on a launching ramp. She doesn't know it yet, but she just saved D-Day. She just saved the invasion. She just changed the course of the war. One woman, one detail, everything. That's her legacy. Not just what she found, but what she represents. Intelligence matters. Details matter. And heroes come in forms you'd never expect. Sometimes they don't carry rifles. Sometimes they carry magnifying glasses. And sometimes that's more powerful than any weapon ever built.